21st century, what will it be like? How will we choose to live in the next 34 years? We might fill our with furniture like this, our beds, tables, and chairs all made of paper. Our home may be lighted by electricity from fuel cells and the wood and leather of stick. Our favorite easy chair might be inflatable, like a huge balloon. The kitchen of tomorrow could look more like a laboratory than a place to bake a cake. Advanced technology already has begun to find a place in the home. With new developments in food preservation, a meal might be stored for years and then cooked in seconds under a barrage of high-energy radio waves. Robots may help us with our housework. It's all possible in the home of the 21st century. Everyone dreams of a home somewhere, surrounded by natural beauty and a lot of land. Before the year 2001, 60 million new homes will be built. Some of these visionary homes of tomorrow exist today. This is what people dream about for the 21st century. What will be the reality? The search for a place to live in the 21st century already has begun. Today, people are pushing away from the crowded congestion of present-day cities and congesting the surrounding countryside. Many of them end up in homes like these at the ugly edges of urban sprawl. The search for a home nestled in nature often ends in the empty repetition and tasteless sterility of a suburban tract development. Instead of delighting in natural beauty, urban sprawl defiles it. The age-old American dream of a home away from it all could create a 21st century nightmare. What is the future of the single-family home? Architect Philip Johnson.
This idea that you should plop little houses around on tracts will go, I think. There's no, it's a totally wrong use of land. Everybody has a little bit of lawn on four sides of his house. Nobody has any privacy. No one has a garden of their own. No architect builds houses now. It's all done by builders and developers. And they build them all alike, as you know. They're called the ticky-tacky houses in the song. But there's no future to that, because the cost of servicing the house is growing by such leaps and bounds that the taxes on that house can nowhere near pay for the services the town has to put there with the water, sewage, roads. So the house is a thing of the 20th century.
If the individual house is a thing of the 20th century, the search for the home of tomorrow might end in enormous brick beehives like these. It has been projected that by the 21st century, 90% of the American population will make their homes in urban areas. Can we find a compromise between intelligent use of land and personal privacy? City planner Konstantinos Doxiadis.
We forgot in the 20th century, and especially in this country, the necessity for privacy. I don't believe in picture windows, which allow people to inspect my house from outside. But I also believe in squares, playgrounds, benches, statues out of my house, which will give me the chance to meet with my neighbors when I want. The Japanese have the smallest gardens in the world, but they are the most beautiful. And some of them are symbolic of the whole cosmos, of the whole world. A small pond, perhaps 3 feet square, replaces the sea, a rock replaces the mountain, and the open sky replaces or is there for the great cosmos. A very small tree means the forest. In this very small garden, we have the symbolism of the world, that the Japanese can retire in this garden and think and meditate. And this we have to give to ourselves.
The Japanese home is an ancient solution to the problems of urban living. At Expo 67 in Montreal, Canada, a bold new experiment in housing is in progress. It is called Habitat 67. Habitat may be a prototype for the home of 2001. This unusual urban complex is a cluster of 354 of these concrete boxes, or modules. Together, these modules will make up 158 individual homes, each with a private garden and terrace. They are precast on the construction site and hoisted into place by giant cranes. The population density of this project will be 10 times greater than the average suburban tract, but much less than conventional high-rise apartments. Habitat's building block construction attempts to apply the efficiency of modern mass production to problems of urban living, combining economical use of land and imaginative design. Habitat's young Israeli architect, Moshe Safdie.
What Habitat tries to do is build a high-density environment and still give the family the kind of amenities which they go to the suburbs for, which they go to a single-family house, like privacy, like a garden, like fresh air and sunlight and view and all the things people want in a house. So it's trying to preserve these amenities within a high-density, multi-story development. This is a single repetitive unit which measures approximately 17 feet by 38 feet. And it's cast on the plant and pre-finished, and then the crane lifts it into place and interlocks it. And these units are load-bearing so that the forces go right through the units to the ground. Then 1, 2, or 3 of these make up houses, so that this may be a house, or that may be a house, and there's the garden there. And the clusters which are formed by 8 units along the street have a common area of entrances and playgrounds on the other side. And then on the ground you have the car level and you have the pedestrian level. Okay. And the pedestrian level bridges to the river and to the harbor, and the car level and the pedestrian level never cross.
Probably less than half of the 60 million new 21st century homes will be one-family dwellings. This doesn't necessarily mean the end of the individual home. Many build a second home in the country. With electronic communications and high-speed transportation, time in large urban clusters, and then really get away from it all in a truly isolated, self-sufficient second home. No one knows where the search for the home of 2001 will ultimately end. We do know some of today's possibilities, like these luminescent panels. Let's push our imaginations ahead and visit the home of the 21st century. This could be someone's second home, hundreds of miles away from the nearest city. It consists of a cluster of prefabricated modules. This home is as self-sufficient as a space capsule. It recirculates its own water supply and draws all of its electricity from its own fuel cells. As we approach, it could be observed by an automatic closed-circuit television system which would notify our hosts. Once inside, we might find ourselves in a glass enclosure where the lint and dirt we've accumulated during our trip is removed electrostatically. Now we step into the living room.
What will the home of the 21st century look like inside? Well, I'm sitting in the living room of a mock-up of the home of the future, conceived by Philco Ford and designed by Paul McCobb. This is where the family of the 21st century would entertain guests. This room has just about everything one would want. A big, some might say too big, full-color 3D television screen, a stereo sound system that could fill the room with music, and comfortable furniture for relaxed conversation. Now, in the 21st century, you might bring your favorite chair along with you when you go for a visit. To do this, you wouldn't need a small trailer, just a little bag like this. Now, there's a full-size chair in here, a chair that blows up like a balloon. Here's the way it looks after it's been fully inflated. When a guest arrives, he just pulls out his inflatable chair, a small pressurized air capsule would inflate it, and it would be ready for use. At the end of the evening, he'd just pull out the plug and put the deflated chair back into his little bag. Sounds preposterous, but some people are convinced it will happen. And here's another piece of furniture that might be found in the living room of the 21st century home. When you're finished, a little children's chair, just throw it away. It's made out of paper. In the 21st century living room, there's no reason we can't have something old and familiar in it to remind us that both the present and the future are really merely extensions of the past. Even before that chair was made, technology had begun to change our way of living. Technology is opening a new world of leisure time. One government report projects that by the year 2000, the United States will have a 30-hour work week and month-long vacations as the rule. A lot of this new free time will be spent at home, and this console controls a full array of equipment to inform, instruct, and entertain the family of the future. The possibilities for the evening's program are called up on this screen. We could watch a football game, or a movie shown in full color on our big 3D television screen. The sound would come from these globe-like speakers. Or with a push of a button, we could momentarily escape from our 21st century lives and fill the room with stereophonic music from another age. Everything in this home of the future has been designed for comfort. Today's air conditioners, for instance, are only the beginning. The home of the 21st century might have a completely controlled environment. For example, those wall panels can change themselves to darken a room or let in more light. They're controlled by this switchboard. Now, this is where the family of the 21st century would relax. Over here is where work would be done. Now, this is where a man might spend most of his time in the home of the 21st century. This equipment here will allow him to carry on normal business activities without ever going to an office away from home. This console provides a summary of news relayed by satellite from all over the world. Now, to get a newspaper copy for permanent reference, I just turn this button, and out it comes. When I've finished catching up on the news, I might check the latest weather. This same screen can give me the latest report on the stocks I might own. A telephone is this instrument here, a mock-up of a possible future telephone. This would be the mouthpiece. Now, if I want to see the people I'm talking with, I just turn the button and there they are. Over here, as I work on this screen, I can keep in touch with other rooms of the house through a closed-circuit television system. With equipment like this in the home of the future, we may not have to go to work. The work would come to us. In the 21st century, it may be that no home will be complete without a computerized communications console.
The domestication of the computer already has begun. In Phoenix, Arizona, the Charles Crawshaw family has learned to live with a computer terminal in their kitchen. This teletypewriter is connected by ordinary telephone lines to a computer complex in New York City, 2,400 miles away. Charles Crawshaw, a General Electric engineer, works on technical problems. His wife, Barbara, uses the computer for various household chores. Here, the computer has expanded the proportions of a recipe for 6 into a recipe for 14. By the 21st century, home computers may be as common as today's telephones.
Hey, what are you doing?
The children of the 21st century might be educated by a computer at home. The Crawshaw daughters do some of their homework this way today.
Try 148.
148.
Tomorrow's home computer won't simply do old jobs in new ways. By the time the Crawshaw daughters have families of their own, we may have created jobs for computers that we haven't even dreamed of today. Even with a computer in her kitchen, Mrs. Crawshaw still cooks her family's meals. Cooking might be different in the 21st century. Industrial designer Henry Dreyfus.
I like to think that the art of baking a homemade pie won't be lost, but maybe the one that comes out of the supermarket is going to be better than the one that you can make at home because we've lost the art. I think that packages for quick food, and this doesn't just have to be in the kitchen, that a package might very well have a disposable electric plug as part of it. And you just plug this in, the package would heat, you'd eat the food, and you might even eat the package. All the wasted paper in the world, it's conceivable that when the package was heated, it would turn into part of the food. I think people like to eat, and I don't think really that everybody's going to eat out of a deep freeze. I think that some people like to cook. I think we should take this away from them.
For those who still enjoy cooking for themselves, the kitchen of the 21st century may offer many new ways to prepare a meal. Microwave cooking, for example. Microwaves are high-frequency electromagnetic waves, higher than the waves that carry normal radio signals, but lower than the frequencies we know as light. Microwaves vibrate energy, and food absorbs this energy as heat. Many materials, like the glass that surrounds this souffle, are unaffected by microwave energy. The glass remains cool while the food gets hot. The food is cooked all at once instead of having to absorb heat slowly from the outside. This souffle normally cooks in 40 minutes. With microwaves, it's ready in 90 seconds.
This might be part of the kitchen in the home of the future. Preparation of a meal in the 21st century could be almost fully automatic. Frozen or irradiated foods are stored in that area over there. Meals in this kitchen of the future are programmed. The menus given to the automatic chef by a typewriter or punched computer cards. The proper pre-packaged ingredients are conveyed from the storage area and moved into this microwave oven where they are cooked in seconds. When the meal is done, the food comes out here. When my meal's ready, instead of reaching for a stack of plates, I just punch a button, and the right amount of cups and saucers are molded on the spot. When I've finished eating, there'll be no dishes to wash. The used plates will be melted down again, the leftovers destroyed in the process, and the melted plastic will be ready to be molded into clean plates when I need them next.
In 2001, we might eat out in automated restaurants. Today, American Machine and Foundry has a system for automated drive-ins called AmFare. Press a button and the computerized kitchen cooks by itself. Robots are coming, not to rule the world, but to help around the house. In the home of 2001, machines like these may help cook your breakfast and serve it too. We may wake up each morning to the patter of little feet, robot feet. We spoke with a professor who is experimenting with computerized robots at London's Queen Mary College, M.W. Thring.
Professor Thring, what are these?
These are the first prototypes of small-scale models of the domestic housemaid of the future.
The domestic housemaid of the future?
Yes, the maid of all work, to do all the routine work of the house, all the uninteresting jobs that the housewife would prefer not to do. You also give it instructions about decisions, that it mustn't run over the baby and things like that. And then it remembers those instructions, and whenever you tell it to do that particular program, it does that program.
What is the completed machine going to look like? Is it going to look like a human being?
No, there's no reason at all why it should look like a human being. The only thing is it's got to live in a human house and work in a human house, so it's got to go through doors and climb up stairs and so on. But there's no other reason why it should look like a human being. For example, it can have 3 or 4 hands if it wants to. It can have eyes in its feet. It can be entirely different. It would have the full run of the house, and indeed these ones here are examples of machines that would actually walk upstairs. Just as the human being has the built-in sense of balance, we can build in a sense of balance into the machine so that the body part of it is always upright, even when the carriage is going up the stairs.
Could the machine conceivably make a mistake and just walk out of the house, go through the wrong door?
It could. It's very easy to allow for this, though, because you can have a large red button conveniently placed so that anybody can punch this button and immediately immobilize the whole machine, so there's no need to be frightened of it.
Does it fold itself up, or are we going to have to provide it a room in the house?
It would put itself away in a cupboard when it had finished, where it would also recharge its batteries.
The 21st century home is still only a dream, as utopian and probably as unattainable for the average man as these far-out homes of today. Comes a time when our dreams of the 21st century must be weighed against the realities of today. Architect Philip Johnson.
We're talking about where you and I are going to live. And we're going to live in these mass-produced buildings. And just mass-producing little plop-plops or adding a flexible type thing, do-it-yourself, isn't going to work. Now, what is going to work, an individual wants to be like Thoreau and go off to the Maine woods and get an axe and build your own house. That will go on for some centuries, perhaps. But that is no longer germane. What is interesting is the push to the city that's as nothing but accelerated since Jefferson's time. And this is the strength, to get around to another subject, this is the reason why it's so difficult to persuade the American people to do their cities over, is because we still believe in Jeffersonian agrarian ideals. You spend all your day in a labyrinth, you see, well, you're going to spend all night there too. We're just going to make it as tolerable as we can.
Can we find a compromise between our increasingly urban way of living and the pride and privacy of the individual home? These children will raise the families of the 21st century. They will live in homes with all the gadgetry of a new age: 3D television, automated cooking, and robot housemaids. But machines don't make a home. People do. A home, as Winston Churchill once observed, is more than just a living unit. It will take decisions that go beyond technology, decisions about the quality of the life we want to lead, to answer the question, how will we live in the 21st century?
The 21st Century was filmed and edited under the supervision and control of CBS News.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Skip Alsheimer of AV Geeks. We collect old 16mm films and show them to folks like you. That last film was At Home 2001, and it's part of a series, the 21st Century, that Walter Cronkite hosted. And he hosted it because he did a series called the 20th Century, which actually looked back at the 20th century. And he narrated and hosted that. And so this was forward-looking. It was in the mid-'60s. I think that one was 68. And it's great because we get to see, like, well, let's see what happened. What did they get right? And he actually does spend time in the Ford Philco House of the Future, which is featured in the film that I have, which I don't know if I've actually shown here, which is called Year 1999 AD. And so you get to see a little bit about like what the environment is like. And that film features, as somebody commented, Wink Martindale. But it's interesting what they got right, and it's interesting what they got wrong. And the main thing that they got wrong in that film is there's no keyboards. Their user interface is really weird, and just not thought out really well. Everything is pen-based or XY buttons, or a dial. It's, they got some aspects of it right, but then the UI is really what's made the big difference, and that's why Apple is so huge, is because they thought about UI considerations back in the day. Anyways, love that film. It's really great. The next film that we have coming up, it's Juneteenth. And regrettably, I don't have any educational films that I've found in my collection that actually talk about Juneteenth. They talk about slavery, they talk about Emancipation Proclamation. They don't talk about the aspects of, why it took them so long to get to Galveston, Texas, to free all the slaves in the United States. So I'm still looking for it. It might show up in a film that I have. Slavery discussions in the films are not, they kind of talk about them, but they gloss over them, especially in the 50s. They get a little bit more pointed and actually talk about it in the 70s, but I haven't found the Juneteenth. But what is coming up is also Father's Day, and so I picked this next film, which unfortunately suffers from water damage at the beginning, which is horrible and beautiful at the same time. So you'll see this kind of weird, like, splotches appear, and it's basically because of Hurricane Fran? Yeah, Hurricane Fran that flooded my basement at the time and damaged a bunch of films, probably 200 films. But this one was only at the beginning, and the damage will get less and less. So this is Why Fathers Work. Enjoy.
Every weekday morning, Ed Kimball rises early to get ready for work. Like many others, Ed Kimball's workday starts early.
Good morning, Lisa. Today can I get you a dress?
We'll see. Today's payday.
Okay.
Well, I have to go.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye, Dad.
Why do fathers like Ed Kimball go to work? Why is work important? Let's go with Ed Kimball to his job this morning to find out.
Morning, Dave. Morning, Ed.
Someday soon, this will be a skyscraper, a tall building that rises high above the city streets. Together with hundreds of other men, Ed Kimball is helping to construct this building.
Don't use that word. Cut him.
When the skyscraper is finished, many different kinds of offices and apartments will occupy the floors that Ed Kimball passes on his way to report for work. On the job, Ed spends most of his day on the top floor of the building. He and the men who work with him are called structural iron workers.
Back line out or? Probably shake out. Shake out? That'll be won't be no this afternoon, will it? Well, we'll get the floor skidded out then. Good idea. Get some of the loggers out of here.
These men use heavy pieces of steel to build the strong, solid frame that will support the finished building. Slowly, the steel columns rise from the street, lifted by a giant crane. On the top level, Ed and his fellow workers guide each column as the crane moves the 20-ton load into position. After a column has been bolted into place, Ed and his crew get ready for the next. Piece by piece, the frame of the skyscraper grows higher. Ed Kimball's work is hard and often dangerous, but he has helped build many buildings, and he has learned to do his job safely and well. It takes many different kinds of workers to build the frame of a modern skyscraper. Besides iron workers like Ed Kimball, there are welders who weld or bind the steel pieces together. Inspectors who check with delicate instruments to make sure each weld is strong. On every floor, when the steel work is finished, carpenters move in to build wooden forms and scaffolds. Next come the cement workers, some to work on the ground, others on the floors above. Each man working on the building has been trained to do one particular kind of work. Each has a special skill. On a single day, more than 500 skilled men may be working together on the job. Some men must make sure all the workers are doing their jobs well and on time. These are the bosses, the carefully chosen, more experienced workers who plan and direct the work of others. But, boss or worker, each man who helps build the skyscraper has at least one special skill. The building could never be finished unless many different skills were brought together in one place at one time. All over a big city, such as the one where Ed Kimball lives, people with many special skills work at thousands of different kinds of jobs every day. Factory workers make the things we need and use. Businessmen keep the factories busy. Policemen maintain order on the city streets. Bus drivers take people where they want to go. Truck drivers bring goods to city stores. Nurses and doctors work to help keep people well. postmen deliver mail to all parts of the community. Some workers repair things. And others help us learn more about the world we live in. Many workers are needed to provide people in a community with the goods and services they need. The new skyscraper Ed Kimball and his fellow workers are constructing is needed. The city is crowded and growing fast. More space is needed for offices and apartments and stores. So the work that Ed and his co-workers do is important. It not only helps the community, it provides Ed Kimball with a sense of pride and achievement. Imagine what would happen if some of the workers on the skyscraper and in other parts of the city suddenly were not there to do their job. If people weren't on their jobs every day, almost all activity in the city would stop. Work, then, is important because a whole community depends on it to meet people's needs. But people themselves depend on work, too. Every Friday afternoon, when Ed Kimball leaves his job with the rest of his crew, he receives a paycheck. This means he is paid money for the work he did during the week. With the money that he takes home, he can buy many of the things he and his family need. At the Kimball's house, payday is just a little different from other days. After dinner, the Kimball's decide on what things they really need to buy.
Think we can get Lisa to dress?
I think we can, Ed. We made the car payment this week.
Good.
On most Saturdays, the whole Kimball family goes shopping. Visiting the stores is fun when you're planning to buy something special. It's almost as much fun just to look at some of the things you don't intend to buy.
$1,200, would it?
How fast does it go?
Oh, real fast, real fast. We can get everybody on that, too.
Everyone?
Sure, that's really nice. Isn't it?
The whole family?
Sure, everybody could fit on that.
Occasionally, when he can afford it, Ed Kimball may surprise a member of the family.
Isn't that nice? Boy, come on, we'll buy it.
New football helmet, huh?
For my boy.
You need a charge plate, please.
Just cash, please. You like it?
$6.29 out of 10.
Finally, the last stop the Kimball's made, the supermarket, is the most important one. For the Kimball children don't have to have a football helmet or a fancy new dress. But the family does need food, groceries. Ed Kimball is proud of his family, and he's proud of the fact that he can buy for them all of the things they need and many of the things they want. This is one of the reasons why work is important to Ed. By using his special skills, Ed Kimball is able to make a living for himself and his family. His work also provides him with a sense of pride and achievement. There are countless workers like Ed Kimball all over the country. Countless fathers at work. Men who do useful work to help their communities prosper and grow. Some of these workers will help finish the skyscraper that Ed and his fellow workers have started. In time, when their children grow up, they too will have jobs and go to work to provide themselves and their families with food, clothing, and the many other things people everywhere need and want.
It's a pretty great film. Unfortunately, there's not a film called Why Mothers Work. There are other films that talk about different people that work in different workplace situations. People who work in factories, people who work in offices, and women do show up in those films. But it's interesting that it's, because I guarantee you by like probably 10 years after this film was made, then you had households where both people worked, both the mother and the father worked. At least that's my experience personally. So I was setting up a visual aid for this next film. A couple of times this week, I have mentioned or have talked about Guardiana, Safety Woman, and I would realize that I have not shown any of those films. Safety Woman Guardiana is a superhero who helps kids learn safety rules. I have two of the films, Harm Hides at Home and Safety Out of Doors. And there's a third one which I don't have and I'm still looking for. This one is interesting, and I want you guys, when you're watching it, I have a theory. So I want you to think about the gist of this film and think, does it sound familiar to you? Because when I first watched this film as an adult, I was like, wait a minute, that's the plot for this TV show. See if you can figure out what it is. It's just a theory. It's not based on anything factual, but I just think that the similarities are very interesting. So here we go. Here's Harm Hides at Home.
This is Ms. Karen Kingsley, youthful, gifted, attractive, a successful freelance architect who still finds time to serve the children of her community as a volunteer crossing guard. A very special kind of woman, perhaps more special than you can imagine. It was less than a year ago. Karen was returning from a visit to her favorite Aunt Margaret in the small township of Springfield. It was here that something took place which gave her extraordinary powers.
the Stellans. We wish you only good, Karen Kingsley. To the young people of your world is soon to be given the task of new building. Give them the 3 keys. Aware, alert, alive. Keep them safe. Be their guardian. Receive the ancient ring of the 3 torches, symbol of the 3 keys. Receive its knowledge, Karen Kingsley. The ring becomes the safety shield, which freezes time and space, stopping objects in their tracks. The teletaker, which transports objects from one point in space to another instantly. The reversal ray, which makes time and space move backward. Receive the power and be called Guardiana, Safety Woman. Aware, alert, alive.
And that is how Karen Kingsley became Safety Woman.
Hi, boys. Wait here a minute. Okay, come on across. Hey, Lynn, where are the boys this afternoon?
Kevin and Tommy are on the school basketball team. They went on the bus to play Marshfield School. They're probably home by now.
Speaking of home, you're going to be a little late getting home today, aren't you?
It's okay. I got permission from my mother to stay after school to help Mrs. Lopez set up the fire prevention display in the auditorium.
Hey, that sounds interesting. I'm off duty now. You care to walk home with me? You can tell me all about the fire prevention display, okay?
Sure, Miss Kingsley. It's a neat display.
Fire prevention is an important subject. You know, more than 500 boys and girls about your age lost their lives in house fires last year?
Yeah, that's why Mrs. Lopez had us make a display for the whole school to see.
I think that was a good idea.
We learned that fires have just 3 things to get started. 1, something to burn. That's the fuel. 2, oxygen, which comes from the air. And 3, heat. Take any one of them away, and there's no fire.
There's nothing we can do about the oxygen because air is everywhere. But getting rid of the fuel would be a good start. Is that why Chuck was cleaning out the garage Saturday?
Yeah, and he made a poster about it for our display.
His garage sure was a mess.
You're home free when you're fuel free.
Yes, a clean house is a good way to prevent fires. No fuel, no fire. It's very good.
We learned that kids playing with matches and grown-ups smoking cigarettes carelessly cause more house fires than anything else does.
Yes, lots of fires are caused by carelessness at home.
And electrical fires are dangerous too.
They sure are. Overloaded circuits and frayed wires cause fires. Well, here's your house.
Bye, Miss Kingsley. See you tomorrow.
Take care, Lynn. Your fire prevention display sounds great.
Mom, I'm home.
Oh, yeah, Mom's over at Aunt Miriam's house. Whew. Winning basketball games sure makes you hungry. I'll have a Super Burger Supreme. Ooh, that was a close one, Guardiana.
You were lucky this time, Kevin. Now, fire safety is one area where being alert really pays off. And you made that flame way too high, and you left the paper on the stove. If you were aware of that danger, you could have avoided it. You know, something as simple as a can of baking soda spread on that fire would have given you precious moments to think.
You're right, safety woman.
Do you know the Danger Dodger salute, Kevin?
Aware, alert, alive.
That's right. Now let's review what's meant by the Danger Dodger motto. Being aware means knowing the dangers that surround us. And being alert involves planning ahead to avoid those dangers. Knowing what to do is what keeps us alive. Getting an early warning can save lives. Many people use smoke detectors in their homes to warn them of a fire before it has a chance to spread, and that's an excellent idea. But knowing what to do after the alarm has sounded is even more important. Phone immediately and have the fire emergency number taped right to your telephone. Always sleep with a flashlight near at hand in case of a power failure.
I know several ways to get out of the house if fire's blocking the door.
Well, good for you, Kevin. You know, that should be part of every family's fire survival plan, along with regular home fire drills to make sure that that plan is a good one. Now, Kevin, this fire escape plan is something you can share with the other members of your Danger Dodger Club.
Yeah, I do it myself.
I see your diagram shows all the main and secondary exits. And besides fire prevention, you can practice safety in other ways. Right now, Tommy is taking the door off his old refrigerator.
This is a lot of work, but it sure is worth it. Don't want any little kid getting stuck inside and suffocating. Wait till Dad gets home from work and sees the good job I've done. Better put Dad's tools away.
Dad's gun! Dad's gun!
Emergency. I must go, Kevin. Danger Dodger, I salute you. Aware, alert, alive.
Guardiana, the gun wasn't loaded.
Tommy, the one thing everyone needs to know about guns is this. Every gun is a loaded gun. Now, 600 people of your age died last year from bullets in guns that they thought were empty. For that reason, guns are never to be played with, not ever. All guns should be safely locked away.
I'm sorry, Guardiana.
I know, Tommy. But if we're not alert to dangerous things like a gun, how are we going to avoid the more innocent-looking things around our homes that can harm us almost as much? Toys certainly don't look as deadly as a gun, but left scattered around on a flight of stairs, they can be just as dangerous. Falls are the most common cause of home injuries. Be sure that hallways and stairwells are well lighted. You know, Tommy, hundreds of boys and girls are badly injured every year in falls around the house, falls that could be avoided. Picking up your own playthings and helping a younger brother or sister to pick up theirs can save a life. That life could be your own, or that of someone you love.
Golly.
to make our homes fall-proof by cleaning up slippery spills immediately. A wet floor or a slippery tub is a real hazard, Tommy. To prevent falls, be sure to use non-skid material for sure footing and step out onto a dry area. Falls while reaching are especially dangerous. Just last week, for example, Terry tried to hang a plant from her patio roof. To reach the hook, she had to use a stepladder. But the one she chose was a little too short. She should have used a tall, sturdy ladder.
Wow, you've really got to be careful all the time, don't you, Guardian?
Yes, but I can't be everywhere at once. See those? They're killers, too. Well, they weren't meant to be. The labels even warn you of the harm they can do. Medicines, cleaning products, and paints should be stored on high shelves, well out of the reach of small children. We all need to learn to read labels more carefully, Tommy. Looking for key words like danger, caution, or poison can alert us to possible harm. And if a poison or harmful substance is swallowed, call your doctor immediately.
I better start reading labels, huh, Guardiana?
Right, Tommy. Exactly right. Labels are important, but appliances don't have labels to warn us of electrical shock. Always get permission from your parents before using any electrical tool or appliance. And as a safety precaution, always stand in a dry place when touching anything electrical. Old, worn wiring can cause severe electrical shock or fires. It should be repaired or replaced. You can protect small children by covering electrical outlets with safety caps.
I won't forget what you've taught me, Safety Woman.
Danger Dodger, I salute you.
Do you know the Danger Dodger salute?
Oh, I think so.
So that's Guardiana, Safety Woman. Some of you recognize the parallels with Greatest American Hero, which I believe came out in '81, and this film came out in the late '70s. And so I just did a screen capture here. There are some parallels here which are fascinating. One is both of these people were given superhero powers by aliens. Both of them have mild-mannered jobs, and this is their kind of secret identity. And that logo, boy, I don't know. It's close, not perfect. But yeah, Greatest American Hero came out years later after Guardiana was released to schools everywhere. I used to love Greatest American Hero. My father and I would watch it in prime time when it came out, and I watched it recently, and it doesn't age very well. It's kind of weird. I really wanted to like it, but it's just there's something very strange about it. The pacing is weird. But anyways, yeah, so when I was watching this Guardiana film as an adult, I was like, wait a minute. I think that's plot so similar. All right. So this next film, I'm surprised I have not shown it yet. But it's a doozy. It's a doozy, not really a doozy, but it's pretty great. And it asks the question, which you will figure out, and maybe you'll have an answer for in the comments. So make a comment. And I should say before we start the film, thank you to Linda, thank you to Griffin Lady, and thank you to William for coffee. There's a link here to buy me coffee, and I very much appreciate all the gifts. Also Patreon, people have been donating with Patreon, and it means a lot to have your comments and have you guys tune in all the time. And it means even more to have money coming in. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And the caffeine is very well spent. It wakes my brain up. That is my one drug, believe it or not, that I use every day and have a mild addiction to. So here we go. Here is Why Doesn't Kathy Eat Breakfast?
Kathy? Hi. Is it okay if we ask questions? Well, we hear that you never eat breakfast. Is it true? How come? Is it that you're not getting the kind of cereal you want? No? Maybe you're missing some of the fruit you'd like. What about some bacon and eggs? What about some... No, huh? Oh, I know. I bet you're getting tired of the usual breakfast fare. You want something different. None of those appeal to you, huh? What if you could have anything you want?
You're making me sick.
Okay. So it's not the kind of food. Maybe you have some family problem. That's it, isn't it? You have a mother who...
Kathy, you know how much time it takes me to make breakfast. I get up early just to be sure you'll have the right food.
My mother's not home right now. She's gone to work already.
Okay. Some other problem. Your brothers and sisters, they fight at the table. It makes you upset.
I don't have any brothers or sisters.
Well then, what is it? Could it be that you just don't have food? Your dad is gone and your mother works to make ends meet and all you have in the kitchen are a few crusts of bread. Well, then, it's not a matter of money. What is it, Kathy?
All right, so what is interesting about this film is that the original film has what you saw, then it has the stop the projector, discuss, then it has the film again. So the idea is, I don't know what the idea is. I'm guessing that you discuss it and then you go back through and watch it and then the kids comment. And it's not just this film. There's another film in this series. It's called Why Not Snack? And it's the same format. So it's not a mistake. And the second time it shows it, it doesn't say stop the projector, discuss the film. So it's intentionally showing the film twice, and it's intentionally short. So yeah, it's a really, that's the question I ultimately have, is not why doesn't Kathy eat breakfast, but why did they have the film twice? And, you know, what is the teaching aspect of this? You know, this is open-ended, just like Why Not Snack? It's open-ended. It shows a kid, and maybe I'll show that at some point if I have that digitized. But it's the same type of open-ended thing where you discuss it at the end. So anyways, yeah, it's a wonderfully weird film with lots of different... I always pose that question to audiences when I show it, and adults have different reasoning for why she doesn't eat breakfast. And, you know, the challenge, of course, is for kids is like, well, there's no reason why she can't eat breakfast because she has plenty of food, she has plenty of time. You know, she should eat it. So there you go. This next film is Encyclopedia Britannica, and this is related to the previous film. This is answering a child's why. So maybe this will answer why. So here we go.
Here they are, today's children, future citizens in our democratic society. They're lovable, they're often exasperating, and they're continually trying with all their might to discover the meaning of what they experience. But in order to understand and live effectively in the world around them, they need our help. How we interpret it to them primarily shapes their emerging personalities and helps to determine how they will develop as citizens. She's a very inquisitive child, full of questions. Questions her mother faces day in, day out.
These are beautiful. Let's give the flowers a drink of water. Need water just as little girls do.
I want to do it.
All right, dear. Let's start over here.
Question after question, and mother is the teacher. What mother knows, right or wrong, she passes on to her child. And thus Judy learns in her own way and under mother's guidance that rain is nature's way of giving flowers a drink. Every event becomes an exploration into the unknown.
Hello, darling. Now I want you to hold this quietly under your tongue.
Why?
Because it will show if you are well or not. And if you are, then you may go outdoors and play.
Am I well, Mommy? Can I get up?
Almost well. I think tomorrow you may go for a walk with Daddy.
The child's never-ending whys often concern matters that are difficult to explain.
Yes, darling, they're taking Mr. Jones away today because he's been ill for a long, long time, and he died.
Why did he die, Daddy?
Well, you see, honey, when people get to be very, very old and they've been sick for a long time, they die.
Mother has noticed, she?
No, darling. Mommy and Daddy aren't old. We won't leave you.
By facing such questions frankly, parents help children to accept confusing and often frightening experiences more easily. Every new event becomes a source for new questions. Who is this? Why does mother hug this stranger?
So this is little Judy. Well, well, Judy, come on, give me a kiss.
This is Uncle Harry, darling. Give him a kiss.
Why?
Well, because he's my brother.
No, I don't.
Brother, wonders Judy? She knows only little girls who have brothers, but she can't understand that this big man could be Mother's brother. And she doesn't know what uncles are. Now, of course, forcing Judy to kiss the stranger might make her rebellious. Fortunately, Uncle Harry understands children. He realizes that it will take time for Judy to accept him and realize what relatives are. This time, her question leads to an understanding about mothers and babies.
Mother, look what Kathy got.
Yes, dear, what is it?
Where did Kathy get the kittens?
Why, they're her kittens, darling. She's their mother.
What are they doing?
They're drinking mother's milk. Mothers always nurse their babies.
Did you when I was a baby?
Yes, darling, I nursed you.
And not only little girls, but little boys love to ask questions. That is how they discover much of the world around them. On walks with Father, they can ask questions, like this one.
What's this man doing?
He's giving the man a ticket.
Why?
The ticket tells the man he was driving too fast.
Oh.
For the moment, Jimmy seems to be satisfied. But then he goes on thinking, which leads to more questions.
Daddy, why does the policeman do that?
Because the policeman doesn't want that man to hurt somebody.
Why?
Well, son, 'cause policemen watch out for us.
Now that makes sense. And Father's answer makes Jimmy feel secure in a world of grown-ups. But Bruce is having a hard time. Like many small boys, he wants to walk alone, like grown-ups. Grandmother insists that he give her his hand. Now that doesn't seem fair.
Oh, yes, you will take my hand. Billy, see that policeman across the street? He'll come and take you away if you don't take my hand. Oh, yes, he doesn't like bad boys.
He doesn't like bad boys? Why, poor Bruce. He doesn't understand why Grandmother is angry, or why the policeman should think that he is a bad boy. Well, maybe policemen don't like little boys. Meanwhile, Jimmy and Father are returning home. Jimmy has enjoyed his walk, and now he is ready to play. Remembering the policeman whom he saw this afternoon, he chooses his toy policeman to play with first. Children's play is creative. It stimulates the imagination. It is also instructive because it lets them play out and rehearse the many new things they're learning about the world. His make-believe world and the real world are not clearly separated.
Oh, here comes Mommy to milk the cows. Look, Papa has to lie down to a little way. Even calms Mother and steps on Father, and that wakes Father up, but Mother's asleep.
But through play and by asking questions, he shows how he is learning the meaning of all events. But soon Jimmy is tired of playing alone. Now he has questions to ask and needs someone to answer them. And Mother is always around. Sometimes Mother asks questions and Jimmy gives answers. And sometimes it's the other way around. This, too, Jimmy likes, because he feels so grown up when he knows the answers. And every answer shows not only what Jimmy has understood about the world, but also what he is learning from his mother and his father about life.
Cows have to eat. They grow big. What is this cow doing?
Well, it looks like he's resting. For the same reason.
And I know why. So it goes big and strong.
That's right.
Mommy, let's look at the police book.
Police book?
Uh-huh.
All right.
You know, I saw a policeman give a man a pickup once.
You did? Do you like policemen?
Yes, very much.
Why?
They protect us, and they have to watch out for us.
But all children may not be as fortunate as Jimmy. Take Molly here, walking home from school after a day of disturbing experiences, which she is now reliving in her mind.
Boys and girls, you may take out your library books now and read them while I'm talking to Molly. I've got the test papers here, Molly. Here's yours. I can see that you didn't understand the test. Why didn't you ask me about the questions that you didn't understand? You know that I'm happy to go over those things again. Why, Molly? Why don't you ever ask questions?
I didn't want to disturb you.
When she was 3, Molly was always asking questions. She was a gay and happy child, eager to learn and to grow up.
Mother, why does this horse have stripes?
Not now, Molly. Mommy's busy. You're going to spoil her cake.
Mother, why?
Please stop asking why all the time. Nice girls don't ask their mommies why when they're busy. You never mind now. Get up on your chair and look at your book.
Molly's mother doesn't mean to be discouraging. She's just a busy woman. And so little Molly goes back to her books. But soon she tires of them. There is no one to answer her questions and share her interests. Repeated experiences of this sort stifle her curiosity. A year later, she is what we call a well-behaved child. Now, Molly's father approves of his boy's interest in cars.
What are you doing?
Hi, Phil boy. I'm fixing the carburetor.
Oh.
Cleaning it out. Been working on it all morning. You know, these new gadgets are getting more complicated every year. When I was a kid, like you are, why, I could fix this with a penknife.
Daddy, what are you doing? What makes the engine go?
Oh, Molly, don't ask questions. Now, you run along. This isn't for little girls. You run along and play with your dolls. You'll get dirty.
And so Molly becomes what some people call a very good little girl. In fact, so good and quiet that she gives up questioning altogether.
Denver Rabbit grabbed up his banjo and he pranced right into the party, a-strumming and a-singing a song. Some folks travels fancy, some folks travels plain, some folks goes on horseback, others takes the train. Some folks has a carriage with a coachman on the back. But when I goes to a party, I travels on old fast. Well, I didn't know you all knew that. Well, that's wonderful. Well, now I bet you can really answer some questions about the story. Wasn't that a funny story?
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Vicki?
Rabbit, tiger, fox.
While all the other children gaily break in with questions and volunteer answers, Molly just sits and watches, not quite daring to be like the others. She doesn't dare risk annoying her teacher, who substitutes for mother in school.
We'll talk about that one tomorrow and have the next story.
Bye.
Bye.
Go in. Now you can get pops.
No, yes, popsicles later. Good morning, Miss Hart. Oh, hello, Mrs. Chambers. How are you?
Just fine, thank you. And how is Molly doing in school?
She's a darling child and so good, but very quiet. Molly, dear, your mother's here.
Molly's always such a good girl.
She is a good girl, but she needs to be encouraged to play with the other children, trying to get her to ask more questions, to enter in more to the group.
Well, just give her time, I always say. Just give her time.
Why didn't you ask?
I didn't want to disturb you.
But Molly, you don't disturb me. I want you to ask questions like all the other girls. I like what you say. I wish you'd speak more often in class. You take your paper and look it over, and then let's talk about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Molly is obviously an extreme case. Every child is frustrated at times by busy parents, but when continuously discouraged at home, like Molly, she may be handicapped in adjusting to the world. Now, Molly may regain her courage if helped by a sympathetic person, in school, for instance. It is essential that children in their earlier years be permitted to ask questions and be encouraged to explore the world with self-confidence. For by answering the whys of children, we help them to understand our way of life and to learn, as personalities, to live in the world with others.
one last short one, which also is related to the last film. It's called What If? It's part of that series of wacky Encyclopedia Britannica films that came out in the late 60s, of which I showed Fantasy of Feet. This is called What If? So let's watch it, and then we'll talk about it briefly. All right. All right. So, when people ask me, what is the point of that film? Why did they show that film to kids? The answer to the question, almost invariably, is the film is meant to be provocative enough to get kids to want to talk about what they just saw. So, related back to the answering a child's why with Molly's teacher, they read a story, then that was enough to get the kids' creative juices flowing and to ask questions, to become inquisitive, to use a critical mind. And so What If presents these scenarios, these short scenarios, and you, like when that little thing shows up, that's when you would stop the projector, and then the teacher would engage with the crowd, with the kids, and say, like, so what do you think happened? What would you do? You know, and just what you're doing is you're getting the kids to start talking about what they're seeing and thinking critically about what they're seeing and how it applies to their life. And you're getting them to be inquisitive and to ask why, and what and how, and, to really kind of start using their brains, exercising their brains. And so the wackier the kids' film, it seems like the more adults can't tolerate it because they want there to be a neat narrative. They don't want these unresolved, like little arcs of narrative. They want it to be totally, laid out for them. And that's not the point of these films. These films are designed to poke your brain and to get you to exercise and ask what, why, how, etc. So, and that's why ultimately I show films like this, is because sometimes adults need that poking and prodding to go like, what was that? That was insane. But thanks so much for tuning in and indulging me for poking your brain and your eyes. And thanks so much for buying me coffee, which makes me more animated to the point where I can't have any more coffee today. I'm about to freak out. I'm getting the coffee sweats. If you liked us on YouTube and Facebook, just like it. Like, physically do the like thing or whatever and subscribe. That'll let you know about future things coming up. You can buy coffee if you like. I promise I won't overdo it. Then Patreon is a place you can donate. avgeeks.com. Plenty of films to watch there and DVDs to purchase. AV Geeks makes DVDs, make great gifts. So thanks again, everybody. And I hope you have a good weekend. It's Father's Day on Sunday. So if your father is still with us, reach out to him, even if he wasn't the kindest man. And yeah, we'll see you again on Monday. You guys take care.